An integral part of playing an MMO is being presented with content that requires more than a single person to complete. Random strangers out in the wilderness on the same quest as you, or friends. Perhaps friends you began the game with, perhaps friends that you made on the journey through the game. Playing cooperatively with other people, whether for something as simple as a quest for PvP, dungeons, or raids, is a core facet of what makes the genre massively multiplayer. Recently, I've noticed a number of MMOs have been pushing solo play as an alternate means of progression, eliminating the necessity for group content. And while solo play has its place in the genre, I do not believe that we should be losing sight of the multiplayer component that this genre has become so dependent on. That is what I want to talk about today. The best MMOs to play with friends, MMOs that have a large focus on playing collectively with other people. Before we jump into today's video though, I want to thank today's sponsor, Dave the Diver. Dave the Diver enters early access on October 27th, so if braving an enormous ocean filled with wondrous treasures, puzzles, and mysteries, along with potential life-threatening dangers, sounds like something that you'd be interested in, then I urge you to click that link in the description and the pinned comment below to wishlist the game right now. Dave the Diver is a brand new marine adventure game set within the mysterious blue hole. Players will be able to play as Dave, and with the help of up to 3 friends, descend into the depths, solving a variety of puzzles, mysteries, and potentially surviving what lies deep within. You'll be able to collect fresh ingredients while exploring the gorgeous, differing marine ecosystems, which can be used to make and sell special dishes. And if you're talented enough, you'll get a surprise visit from the Gordon Ramsay of Dave's world. If you've always dreamt of going deep sea diving but have been terrified of actually engaging in it physically like me, then taking on the role of Dave might be exactly what you're after. So make sure to, again, click that link in the description and the pinned comment below to wishlist the game. A grand adventure awaits. Group content is something that no MMO can do without, and playing with friends provides layers of enjoyment and communication that just cannot be replicated elsewhere. And I do not think that there is any better way to start all of this off than with one of the most multiplayer-friendly MMOs out there, Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 allows players to craft their own story, to control the way their individual narrative unfolds, choices that directly affect the lives of the very foundations of the world. Typically, you'll find stories in MMOs tend to be relatively linear. Everyone is the hero, and choices are already largely predetermined. That is not the case with Guild Wars 2. On the contrary, everyone's story ultimately ends up being original to an extent. Where this truly excels is where players are capable of playing through and interconnecting their stories with one another. You're capable of developing a story with your friends that you're all an active part of, that you all have control over. Technically, you can diverge at points if you want, but you're still capable of participating in one another's story instances. The world itself actively encourages cooperative play between players by scaling each zone down. There is a level limit and power limit that is manually imposed on every zone. You cannot be max level with the most powerful gear in the game, come in and then just one-shot everything. Instead, you're depowered in a sense down to a point where world boss encounters are impossible to tackle solo despite your maximum power, where grouping up with other players is more of a benefit than a detriment. Everything about Guild Wars 2 rewards you for playing with other people, for forging new bonds, and their community is one of the kindest, most helpful, wholesome communities in all of the MMO scene. I know what you're thinking, wow, really? Yeah, really. Mrs. and I have been playing Shadowlands for the last week and a half to prepare for the launch of Dragonflight next month, and rarely have we had the opportunity to play together as much as we have. The entire leveling process is significantly faster with friends. If you have a healer and a tank, queues for dungeons or instant scenarios are doable in a group. Typically, Kill and interact quests are also counted amongst party members within range. Journeying through Shadowlands, I think we've spent maybe 20 minutes in instanced content. Otherwise, every scenario, every quest, every story element has been doable together. Engaging in arena-based PvP all but requires efficient coordination between friends. I've done 3v3 with people that I don't know, and it ultimately ends up messier, a lot messier, than if I had played with people that I've played with before. Knowing each other's strengths and weaknesses, how each other react under certain conditions makes for a much higher ratio of victory. Raids, whether LFR, normal, heroic, mythic plus dungeons, heck even older previous expansion content, is arguably either better with several people or requires several people. At times, one player needs to retain aggro from a boss while the others do the boss mechanics. Plus, let's be honest here, to maximize rewards in the open world, you'll want war mode enabled. Traveling with a couple of friends likely means that you'll never get ganked. It's an added layer of security, I guess, that you wouldn't otherwise have. Mrs. Deeks and I have had infinitely more fun playing together, literally doing everything together. Even more so when we played with my sister Wiggy and Wiggy's boyfriend. I would never play WoW solo, trust me. I did with Wrath of the Lich King, I did with Cataclysm, I did with Mists of Pandaria, I did with Warlords of Draenor, and it is honestly just an entirely different experience playing with other people, especially these days. The Elder Scrolls Online very rarely makes top lists, and I'm honestly not entirely sure why that is. I guess comparatively, Final Fantasy XIV has a monopoly on the genre, and if you want a good action MMO to play, players will probably opt for something like Black Desert Online, neither of which I want to add provide a surplus of content to consume with friends. The Elder Scrolls Online, though, provides opportunities just like Guild Wars 2 does. ESO is, interestingly enough, built first and foremost as an RPG, much like Final Fantasy XIV, and where Final Fantasy XIV feels like a single-player game with cooperative dungeons and raids, ESO allows players to experience the entire game together. Very rarely are players forced into solo instances. Questing allows for players to be within each other's unique instances to complete their own quests simultaneously with your own. The last time I played ESO, the game scaled leveling, similarly to how Guild Wars 2 imposes level limitations. What this means is that if you're level 10 and your friend is level 20, you'll both be able to engage in the same content without worrying about one person being overpowered. There is no overpowered, as level scaling will continue to scale content to the level of the player. A lot of content also caters to groups of players. Delves are targeted towards solo play or small groups. Group delves typically require, well, groups. Public dungeons are shared instances, meaning you can do them with friends. You can do them with complete strangers, I guess, if you really want to. You don't even need to be partied with anyone to participate in one with other people. Group dungeons are dungeons that require 4 people, and trials require 12. There's so much PvE content that is built around playing with other people, grouped or not, that it's almost pointless not working together with other people, especially since you'll complete content that much faster. And that is disregarding the PvP that you'll get to experience while engaging other players in Cyrodiil, which is just so much easier and more fun when coordinating attacks with other people. Much like The Elder Scrolls Online, Star Wars: The Old Republic very rarely makes any lists. It is an older game that was largely mishandled by EA and it never truly recovered, so it makes sense. But that doesn't mean the game does not excel at multiplayer compatibility. On the contrary, everything in this game is multiplayer compatible. You begin the game by choosing your class and choosing your alignment. Every class has their own campaigns with which to follow, which you can share with other players or tackle solo. I don't recall whether each person's respective quests progress independently of one another or whether they can be completed as a singular instance. I think the former rather than the latter. Every class campaign allows a full group of players to join and help you complete it. The main campaign is completely cooperative as well. Other players are capable of joining you for the story. I don't believe all of it. Like every game, there are scenarios where you're required to go in solo, but a large portion of the game, including its story, can be shared amongst other people. The best part of this is that other players can choose different options than you, allowing you to see the outcome of different responses, ultimately affecting the game and resulting in a world that is different than your own. Unfortunately, the only drawback to leveling and playing through quests together is that if you've out-leveled your friends, you're typically barred from participating in specific quest content if you've completed it in the past. The game does have a level sync feature to keep things fair though. Story is not the only area that Star Wars: The Old Republic excels in with regards to multiplayer content though. There are 4-person flashpoints, 8-person operations. These function like dungeons and raids and work significantly better when you actually have a coordinated team. Friends in PvP are all but a requirement, as they always are. I cannot imagine participating in PvP by myself. There's something relaxing, comforting about having other players to rely on, and Star Wars: The Old Republic is no exception. And honestly, that's about it. I know that I'm probably going to find some people that are arguing, why didn't you include X MMO? And that's because I just do not believe that it offers the cooperative multiplayer experience that these games do. As an example, Final Fantasy XIV, incredible MMO, arguably one of the best MMOs in the entire genre, but you spend hundreds of hours grinding through solo story and solo content that is not multiplayer friendly. Black Desert Online, also a great MMO, yet you're forced to grind monsters 24/7, often by yourself. Blade and Soul, every dungeon, every instance, the entire story, leveling is done alone. None of these MMOs encourage players playing alongside one another. A lot of them aren't even very multiplayer compatible, with the exception of dungeons and at times raids. The 4 MMOs listed here allow for so much content to be consumed together that there's really no other MMOs capable of competing. None that I'd recommend. If you can't enjoy these games with a friend, with a significant other, then it might be better to maybe play a game that is built for multiplayer specifically. Now, for those of you that are interested in non-MMOs though, I got 2 videos on screen right now that might be right up your alley. One featuring a list of games slated to come out over the next year that look truly remarkable, and the other, a game that is probably going to be one of the biggest hits of 2023.